What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Sport Exposure Podcast. As you guys know, we're here to expose sports stories, create a safe space for student athletes, past, present, and future. Today, we have Kayla Cason here to share her story, former volleyball player. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
I am Kayla, and I played volleyball in college. I started off playing basketball first, switched over to volleyball starting in high school. I'm now a mother, I'm a gym owner, and yeah.
Yes, all the things. Queen.
Yeah.
So here at Sport Exposure, our motto is celebrating triumphs and learning from defeats. When you hear that, what comes to mind when you think about your sport journey?
I felt like I always had to come from behind. And there was just always something like pushing back, just something stopping me from getting right where I wanted to be. So I don't know. I felt like I had to fight a little bit harder to get to where I wanted to be. So, but once you get to that point and finally reach your goals or whatever that may be, that celebration means so much more because of your journey and the things you had to go through. So I think that's what that means.
For sure. Yeah. So where did you mentioned playing basketball first. So where did sports all start for you?
Since I was 5, my dad, he's a football coach, basketball coach. It pretty much came from him. So he wanted a boy growing up. I'm sorry. He wanted a boy, and then obviously he got me. So he was my little project. So he put me into basketball starting at 5, pushed me all the way through up until high school. And he kind of, I would say, looking back, it wasn't anything wrong with it, but I didn't have the mindset that I did back then or that I do now. So he pushed me really hard, and I kind of fell out of love of basketball.
We've been there.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it was just from childhood. I've always been an athlete and been surrounded by it. I grew up on the football field watching my dad coach football. So I've just always been
around sports.
Yeah. So
the love has always been there. So when did you get into volleyball?
So starting high school, I always played like volleyball in the neighborhood with my neighbors. They were big volleyball players. So I'd go over in the backyard growing up and pepper around with them. So it wasn't anything like foreign to me completely. But yeah, after basketball, I'm like, I got to figure out something to do because I'm an athlete. Like I have to do something. So It's like, I'm all right at this. So I'm gonna switch over. And then I just really started training hard and focusing on that.
So what did you have a goal with volleyball?
Yes. I wanted to play D1 volleyball, but I knew I was already coming from behind. These girls have been playing since they were 5. So I was already, like I said, behind. So I forgot the question.
What was the end goal for volleyball?
Right, D1 volleyball. So I wanted to play D1. I was late in my recruiting process. Didn't really get into it till 10th grade when I started getting looks. And yeah, I knew I wanted to play D1.
So talk about coming from behind. Because a lot of student athletes now, some of them are getting started late.
Right.
I've had conversations with some kids didn't start till they were 15, 16, or sometimes 17.
Right.
So talk about that process.
I would say that like just understand that everyone's process isn't the same, and yours doesn't have to look like somebody who has started, since 6th grade or whatever. So make your process, and don't compare it to anyone else's. And you may have to start here and then work your way up to something. And just because you have to do that doesn't make you any less, valuable as an athlete. So I had to start off. I actually verbally committed to a D3 school. And then I was like, this is way off. Like, I know I can at least play D2 right now. So verbally committed to a D2 school, went to St. Augustine University, which is a HBCU in North Carolina, and played a year there. And then from there, I was like, I know I can get some film, get some tape from here to get me to D1. So after a year there, I started sending out my film and stuff to D1 schools, got a few options, and then ended up committing to Norfolk State. But it was at first hard to accept my process because I was like, I wasn't this big recruit coming out. I didn't have, the lights and the cameras and everything coming out of high school. So accepting my journey was tough. But eventually I look back and I'm like, this actually means so much more because I started from behind. Now I'm here and I did this. So it was dope.
So what exactly was that process like for you? Like as far as grinding, putting in the grind, a day-to-day basis, the workouts, because being a student athlete and really trying to go to, like, with a goal to go to Division I is harder than we know. Mm-hmm. Like, we know that because we went through it, but it's a lot of things that are not talked about. A lot of sacrifices that come with that. Oh, yeah. A lot of commitment that comes with that. And to have the confidence you had to know, to commit to a D3 and know that you're better than that, that's a strong decision to make at that age.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the sacrifice is crazy. My high school life didn't look like, a kid that doesn't play sports. So my weekends are spent away at travel tournaments and practicing 6 days a week. And I knew I had to put in more work. So I would go an hour before practice and I would stay an hour after practice. So I ended up being there for like 2.5, 3 hours sometimes every single day, working out with the team, also putting in work outside of that on my own. I just knew that I had to do more, to get to where these other girls were. And yeah, it's just the time commitment and understanding that, like, if you want to be successful, I mean, it's typical, you have to put in the work. So
you have to.
It's as simple as that. So yeah, it's, I mean, I actually got looked at as kind of like an outcast because I was never, the one partying and the one a part of just the regular stuff that was going on in school. Even in college, when I got there, I still had work to do. I'm like, I'm D2, I want D1. So I'm not partying. I'm out running in the morning. I'm at the gym by myself while the team is out doing something else. So, things just look a little different when you're coming from behind, especially. But being an athlete alone takes a lot. So
absolutely.
So yeah.
So fast forward to at St. Aug, what was that transition like for you? And do you think that your process from coming as an underdog in high school helped you transition?
For sure. St. Aug it's not a huge D2, but I mean we played some good teams though. But I still didn't come in starting. It was still just all right, well, I'll give you this opportunity, but you're still gonna have to work for it. So it was always a fight for me. So trying to get the starting position, but I did work really hard. Ended up getting CIAA Player of the Week, and working my way up to that starting position. So that was pretty much my tryout for the D1 level.
So how exactly did you know that you were qualified to be a Division I student athlete? Even after climbing your way from behind to D3 to decommitting to D2 and even getting to a D school, nah, that's not enough.
I just felt like it was my heart. I just knew how passionate I was. And I just felt like regardless, I'm going to outwork anyone. So I think it was just my work ethic, and I could compare that to the other girls. And I was like, I know I'm different. I know I belong on a D1 level mentally. So I knew I was ready for it because I knew I was doing things that other people weren't doing. So I think it was as simple as that.
So talk about some of the highs and lows when you finally made it to Norfolk State Division I. What did that mean for you?
It was everything. I cried. It was everything to me. Like I said, it still didn't look exactly like what I thought it would 6 years ago before that. But just my family being proud of me, them being able to come out to a game and really understanding that I got school paid for. I think that was the ultimate goal. I knew how hard my parents worked, to get me to that point. I mean, the amount of money they spent just to put me through travel volleyball was probably 2 years of college worth.
For sure.
So I was the least I can do is pay them back, through a scholarship. So I think that was the biggest thing, was I did something for them and for my family. So
how many years were you at St. Aug before you transferred?
A year.
Oh, wow. You were determined.
A year and a half.
You got up out of there.
Yeah. I was only there for a little bit. Yeah. And then I was at Norfolk State for 2 years. And I did 3 semesters at ODU after that. So.
Did you play volleyball at Old Dominion too?
I did not. I stopped. I decided to, after I accomplished my D1 goal, I decided to stop playing volleyball actually and then focus on school. So I'm a checklist person. I'm here.
You just wanted to know you could do it.
Yeah. That was all it was. So,
so how big was the transition from D2 to D3? Work ethic wise,
oh my God,
it's a lot that goes in.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. I mean, the workouts are harder. We're practicing twice a day instead of once a day, and lifting weights. And then obviously the competition is insane. So we're playing really big schools. East Carolina, JMU, some really cool. It was a cool experience. So that was reassuring in itself because I got to play against those schools and know that I could handle my own. So I was like, all right, I wasn't crazy. Like I knew I could be here. So it was cool.
So during that process, when you're fighting your way to D1, what do you think that your lowest moment was? And how did you get through it? Because when you are headstrong on a goal, you're going to continue to stay headstrong on that goal. But it's a lot of stuff that happens in between time that you can't let yourself distract you or get distracted of that goal or that mindset. So talk about a time where you really had to push mentally, emotionally, could be physically, to really attack your goal.
I would say once I got to Norfolk State, I felt like, okay, we're here, but it was still a fight. I'm like, I'm not starting. I'm not getting the playtime now. So I'm like, dang, like I still have to, work. And that was probably my lowest moment in my career. Cause I'm like, I thought when I got here, I was good, and it's a wake up call. Cause like I said, these girls have been here, they've been doing this. So it's like, all right, now here's another fight. So it's really just back to the grind again. So now I got to get on the floor, So the lowest point was just realizing like once you get there, you're not done. There's still work that has to be done. It's never done. So, yeah. So
how did you make the decision to go to Old Dominion after you did all of that, the grind from high school up to making yourself a Division I student athlete, and then you decided to leave it alone? Yeah.
I realized that unfortunately there's not a big space for women's sports, I guess, after college. Especially with volleyball, it's not as big as, women's basketball. There's just not a lot of opportunity. So I just had to make the decision of, all right, I got to start looking at my future. I got a year left of college. I just had to set myself up. So I picked education over being an athlete, and I knew I needed to position myself at the best school in order to become, at the time, a doctor. I wanted to be a physical therapist. So, it was just
How hard was that? Or
hard, because being an athlete is my identity. So going over there, it's just like, I'm just a student. Like, what?
Never been here before.
Yeah, it felt like, I don't know. I felt kind of lost at first. But then I think that's when I really started to dive deep into like my future. What do I want to do? And I found myself outside of being an athlete, or began to find myself outside of being an athlete. So looking back, it wasn't a terrible thing.
And that's what I was going to ask you. How did you find out who Kayla was outside of being a student athlete? Because a lot of us struggle with that in particular.
Right.
Because we've been playing this one sport our entire lives, and then we either graduate, we get hurt, we get injured, don't make it to the league.
Right.
And abruptly, I'm stuck trying to figure out who I am. Right. And that's not an easy process to go through. What was your process like?
I think it was figuring out, I think we all as athletes just want a little piece of that world in our future. So and through like relationships and meeting people, I kind of figured out what it was that I really wanted to do and what my passion was. And I don't know, it's like separating yourself from that world, but still taking a piece of it with you. Because I don't think we could ever like completely get rid of being an athlete. It's always in us.
Yeah.
So like I said, through different relationships and stuff, I figured out that, because I ended up not going to PT school, obviously. And I knew that training kids and training athletes was still my thing. So yeah, I still found myself in the world, but I think it's finding peace and knowing that you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. And for me, I knew that was D1, and that's why I was able to walk away from it. And making peace with that, I think, helps us move on. And I know people do struggle with that a lot, but even if you don't reach your goals and things don't look like what you thought it was going to be, it's just making peace with like, this was a part of your journey. This is where you're supposed to be.
Right.
And not questioning that,
And that's one of those things that's definitely easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
Especially while you're in the process. And I think your story is so unique because you climbed from behind all the way to where you wanted to be. And now you're a gym owner.
Right.
You're running a gym and you're still very much involved with sports, just in a different area.
Right.
And that's one thing that I feel like you said, it's hard for us to find that space. Or like we still want a career, but we still want that that little athlete to be fulfilled somewhere in our lives, but sometimes it's hard. It sounds like you created your own lane because you know what you wanted to do. And tell me how that fulfills you now, like giving back, the importance of giving back to your community, the importance of giving back to other athletes.
It's probably the most fulfilling thing ever when you're, especially with the age group I coach and work with.
And what age group is that?
That's probably like 5th grade all the way through high school. And obviously it's a very important moment in these kids' lives. So just seeing them grow and giving them what I didn't have as far as knowledge and the training and the skills, it's like I didn't have access to all this. You know, I had to figure it out all on my own. So just making that little difference and giving them like a step ahead and giving them advice and just making sure they don't have to go through what I went through and it doesn't have to be as hard.
Right.
That alone fulfills me, just making their journey a little bit easier than mine. So
for sure. So how do you think that some of the things that you went through played a part of you being a gym owner now?
I mean, I it's the perseverance, I would say. Just let's say from like a business or entrepreneur aspect. I mean, everything. It's just understanding that you have to push through and things don't look like you may want them to look right now, but there's a bigger picture. And being able to push people to goals and to places that they don't necessarily see. And I'm talking about like maybe working out and getting people to do what they didn't think they could do pretty much. And I feel like my journey alone allows me to give that to people. You know, it's like, you know, you're capable of way much more than what you think. But you have to have that drive. You have to work for it and da-da-da. So putting all the things that I learned from my journey and giving that to other people through my training is dope. And then as a mother, just understanding that like I'm not perfect, but I'm learning and I'm not like, sometimes I think I'm not doing enough, but it is. And I don't know, it's just having faith that everything's going to work out pretty much. And yeah.
For sure. So what was your journey like becoming a gym owner?
Like you said, it's like understanding that you're not training for a sport anymore, but now you're training for just life and for being healthy and maybe it's for your kids or whatever, or just to feel good and or look good, whatever your goal may be. Shoot. I mean, some people still like to go hard. I still love to go hard as an athlete or an ex-athlete. But I don't necessarily, it was hard for me to understand I don't have to train like my fitness clients like that. So just, I guess, understanding there's a different way of training and it's not just athletic training.
Yeah.
That was really hard for me, but that's also what made me different, was because I can bring in an athletic style of training into my fitness training. So now it's like a mix. And people really like it because it's creative, or they think it is. But, you know, as athletes, we're used to training like that. But
how did you find that balance, though? Because I struggle, because people know if you're working out with me, you're going to die. And those that worked out with me know that. Like, I work out hard. I train hard. I'm going to push you, but it's 45 minutes, an hour and a half, however long we're in here. And it wasn't until I started training older people, it was just I really can't push them now.
Right.
I don't want them to, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And trying to find that balance is a question I always ask fitness trainers, because a lot of them do have athletic backgrounds and sport backgrounds. And like I said before, it's a lot of student athletes that just want to jump into this space, but that comes with certifications, training, knowledge, education, everything that came with being an athlete. So what process did you have to go through from being a student athlete? I know you went to PT school, which also helped as well.
Yeah. So I studied exercise science and kinesiology. Obviously just I feel like being a good trainer is just mostly about having experience yourself. So that alone, obviously been working out my whole life, but even after college, training myself and figuring out what works for me, not being a college athlete anymore. And yeah, I think it's just experience and watching other people train and taking pieces of different people's style and kind of making it your own. So, and it's really just about, I don't know, just trial and error, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
So over the years, you just get better and better. You figure out what's good and what's not. And so, yeah.
For sure. How'd you get into coaching?
I actually was opposed to coaching. I think I told you this before. It's a big time commitment.
Time commitment, patience commitment.
Especially with certain age groups.
For
it's a
sure.
lot. And it kind of came to me, and I was like, if I'm going to do it, that's the only way I'll do it, if it naturally comes. And what was I doing? I was taking my son to practices. He was doing soccer at the time, and I met a guy that owns the facility or whatever. And he was like, he found out that, I played volleyball or whatever. And he was like, yo, I have this class. I need somebody to lead it, to guide it. And I'm like, I'll do a couple and see how it goes. And I did. And I actually enjoyed it a lot. So, I just continued with it because I'm like, okay, this is actually fulfilling, and it doesn't feel like a waste of time. And I feel like I'm helping kids get to where they need to go. So.
For sure. And you had mentioned earlier you enjoy giving kids what you didn't have growing up. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in this climate of sports and student athletes, there's a lot of lack of. And the fact that you're able to be a role model in that space, what do you think that is needed most with this generation of student athletes, specifically volleyball?
I want to say just more knowledge of like the recruiting process. But to get a little deeper than that, I want to target and help Black girls in the volleyball world because it is a predominantly white sport. And I know through my journey, I always felt very uncomfortable, obviously, until I got to HBCUs and I was playing with other Black females. But I know coming up, I felt very uncomfortable, and there was a lot of challenges that I went through just in that aspect, as far as like even my hair, like I didn't want to wear it curly, and I felt like I had to talk a certain way and walk a certain way because like people didn't like me. They didn't naturally gravitate towards me just because of what I look like. Right. And it's like I'm in their space now, so it's like you're an outcast. So reaching back, and I have a lot of Black young girls that really want to work with me, and just so I can show them that it's okay and be who you want to be. Just because you play volleyball doesn't mean you need to look like this or look like, or act like that or talk like that. So that's like my new goal when it comes to coaching, is to work specifically with Black females, because I want them to know it's okay and you can be really good at this sport, and don't back down or shy down just because you don't look like them. So
for sure. And that's a process in itself. Yeah. And I think that I cater a lot of the things that I do to Black and brown girls so they can see that it's possible. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned, like at one point you said you didn't like wearing your hair curly because you're in somebody else's space. Yeah. So mentally, how did you get over that hurdle? Because it's a culture shock.
I didn't. I didn't until, I would say, until college. Like through high school, I battled with that every day. Even my mom was like, Kayla, your hair's fine, like da-da-da. And I wanted to fit in so bad, just to have friends. And I don't know, it was weird. I straightened my hair all through high school. And it wasn't until college where I felt like going to a HBCU helped, because it's like, oh, there's other Black girls that play volleyball. I mean, there was only probably one or two other ones in my club in high school that played. So, it was college that really, and that's why I'm so grateful I went to HBCU. Like I would go back and do it 10 times over. So it exposed me to other things and culture. And so looking back, I wish I would have stepped into it sooner, just owning who I was, but it was a process. So.
What advice would you give to a Black student athlete, volleyball student athlete that's toting the line between going to a HBCU and a PWI?
You said what advice?
Yes, because now I feel like coming from communities that we come from, we be stuck between being ourselves and going with our own people, or wanting to be in the white environment or PWI environment because it's going to set us up for success more so. Right. But in this climate, I feel that you can make the most of wherever you go. And student athletes need to hear that story. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that could be a problem when it comes to volleyball and sports like that, because not every HBCU or like it's not as prevalent in the HBCU community as is PWI.
Right. Yeah, like you said, was like it doesn't matter where you go, especially nowadays. Like it's so normal to like be entrepreneurs and do your own thing, and I think that's great. And it doesn't matter where you go. You'll find your way. So it's like, I love the HBCU experience just because you are with your people and they're just so much more creative and fun, and just the whole experience is just amazing. So it's like, don't shy away from that just because of the norm, you know, and understand that regardless, you'll be fine. Nowadays, things are so, I feel like, laid back. It's not all about like a degree and where'd you go and blah, blah, blah. It's just about connections, networking, and finding your people, really, because those are the people who are supposed to, you know, have your back and make sure you're good later. So yeah, go with your people.
Please.
Right.
Go. And I tell people all the time, like, that's the 4 years that you're surrounded by your own people.
Right.
Life is never going to look like that ever again. Mm-hmm. I don't care where you go. Like, and if you have the opportunity to do it, I believe it's a blessing, because like you said, I didn't gain confidence. The confidence that I have came from going to HBCU.
Exactly.
Because I'm surrounded by my own people, and we're wearing what we want to wear. We're looking like how we want to look like. Whether it's like, I went to a prestigious school, so it was bougie, but it was just it's nothing like being around your own people. Like, if I want to wake up and I don't feel like combing my hair, I'm not going to comb my hair.
Right.
And it's okay. Versus at Peter Y, which I've been there too. I did that too. I woke up and if it didn't feel like combing it, and they looked at me like I was crazy.
Exactly.
But it's just like, I admire people that have both sides, Peter Y and the HBCU experience, because it's two totally different experiences. And even through my own studies in grad school, like, a lot of my case studies were studying the student athlete experience at Peter Y versus the HBCU. So what do you think were the huge distinguishing factors from St. Aug to Norfolk State to Old Dominion? I
think, like, and at HBCUs in general, I just feel like you're more free to be yourself. I don't know, just everyone kind of just expresses themselves more, how they dress, how they walk, how they talk. And even in the classroom, it's just a little bit more, I don't know. It was just more like a space where you can work together and to produce, you know, what they wanted. But like at Old Dominion, I don't know, at the PWI, it was just so much more strict and, you know, do things this way, do things that way. Yeah, and I felt like I was in a box. I felt like I was stuck. I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't do that or start here, because I felt like going to ODU, I had that, like, I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm gonna express myself. I'm gonna do what I want to do. Obviously, with still being respectful and, like, you know, get my stuff done. But I'm just glad that I got that freedom of expression and the will to think outside of the box from an HBCU, and to bring that into ODU and not letting that box me in. Because I think from the HBCU, I started getting the idea of, like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Like, I have things I want to do, and I don't have to just go to school, get my degree, and go get this 9 to 5, you know, and not knocking it, but
it's not for everybody.
Right. And I didn't get that. I wouldn't have gotten that from ODU. So from a PWI, I'm not saying ODU is a bad school. It's a great school. But
so when did you decide that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Because I asked because now these student athletes that got NIL, they're starting to become entrepreneurs early. Mm-hmm. And there's a lack of knowledge when it comes to that. Like, entrepreneur is great, but it's a lot that comes with it. And I'm still learning myself.
Right.
So how did you figure out that was the road that you were going to take?
When I decided I didn't want to work for somebody, I did a couple internships for when I was still on my track to be a physical therapist. I did a couple internships, and having to be there on somebody else's time and, sit in this room, read this, go do this for me. After that experience alone, I was like, no, this ain't gonna work. This ain't it. So, yeah, it was really just that sparked, like, okay, what can I do outside of this that's really gonna fulfill me? So yeah, it was just being on that track of being a PT. I was like, this is too, like, stick and, like, stay in this box and do this and do that and check this off. And I'm like, I don't live my life like that.
So now let's get into this entrepreneurship journey, which I know has been one. 1, owning a gym. 2, being a Black female trainer. Let's talk about what that road has been for you.
I feel like 1, race has been a big thing. And this is just coming now, like, in these last few months, actually. And it comes from my gym being located where it is. It is a predominantly white area. And I don't necessarily appeal physically when you first see me to those types of people. And I'm just getting a lot of things that I just didn't expect, like comments and about my gym and and it's disheartening because I never experienced anything to this level, but it's almost like I'm not qualified or I'm not enough or I'm not good enough if I don't work with white people, predominantly, mostly white people. I have white clients. But that's like the thing now. It's like, oh, like you're not successful. Like you don't have these people in your gym, you know? And it's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy. So that's what I'm dealing with right now.
It is. And to your point, racism as a woman, as a Black woman, and to me, when I first experienced it, it was like a shocker. Like, of course you see it, you read it, you hear about it. But it's one of those things that you never expect to be in that situation until you are. Yeah. It's just like I worked my ass off to be in this space.
Right.
I gave it my all. You have no idea what type of credentials I have.
Exactly.
And to still tell me that I'm not enough or I'm not supposed to be here, but we're on the same strip.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me. And it's a certain level of confidence that it takes to stay in those spaces. Mm-hmm. And mentally, like how have you been getting through that mentally?
There's plenty of times where I wanted to leave. I've thought about it. What I've been there for almost a year and a half now. There's been at least 3 times where I'm like, I'm out of here, man. Like I'm gonna go where it's comfortable. And
why do you choose to stay?
I choose to stay because like I've always been, I'm gonna show that it can be done and I'm gonna have people accept me for who I am. And I'm gonna continue showing up as who I am. And I want people to eventually see like, oh, like she's cool. Like she is knowledgeable. She's dope. And I want to be successful right in the face and in the eyes of those people who thought I wasn't going to be. So I'm like, I'm not going to run away from it. I'm going to stand right there and y'all going to see this gym blow up right in front of y'all's face. So that's just kind of how I think of it.
And it's hard to take the high road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Specifically as a woman, as a Black woman, as an attractive Black woman, as an owner, like that's been my biggest thing. It's just like you have to, because of what we choose to do, we kind of have to accept backlash. But it's just like I'm in a space that I know that I'm supposed to be.
Right.
I know that I'm in a space to change the trajectory. I know I'm in a space to change this y'all minds, to show me that I'm supposed to be here. And taking the high road has kind of been a tough task for me. How tough has it been for you?
Really hard. It takes longer. I'm coming to find, like, I feel like if I would have left and gone somewhere else or did something different, maybe I would have been successful in the eyes of other people faster, but I'm having more of an impact where I am now. So it takes a little longer, but every step means more than I could have just ran and been a physical therapist and okay, cool. Or go to maybe Norfolk and my gym pops off, but that's easy to me. And I want to just show myself and show other people like I can get a different type of crowd in my gym and I can have them like what I do. And I want to show them something different as well. So, yeah. So, I mean, taking the high road, it's hard. I get a lot of negative comments but in a way it fuels me and it's still what motivates me to keep going. Because it's like, y'all don't know who I am, so.
Don't have a clue.
Right.
Don't have a clue. Back to your entrepreneurship journey. It's a path that is not easy. Mm-hmm. And like I said, a lot of student athletes want to walk this walk, they want to walk this journey. As I said, I'm still learning. And how long have you been an entrepreneur?
Coming on 7 years.
7, the number of completion.
Yeah. Really?
Yes, it is. So these 7 years, what does 7 years look like for you from post-grad to now?
Crazy. In a sense, I have had it all and I've lost it all. And I think that is a part of almost every entrepreneur's journey and story at some point. And it's scary as hell. Like, there was a point where I had a gym previously with my son's father, and it was everything. And not only just relationship wise, but making the decision to step away from that and to literally get rid of everything I worked for, and everything that I was a part of, and step out with, like, I told you the story before, $2,000, $1,000 to my name, and to continue walking on the path that I felt like God has called me for. Just having the faith to step out and start this journey. Because like we said, that was like 6 years ago, and I never would thought that I would be where I am today. So yeah, losing it all from that aspect and stepping foot to do it all on my own again. And,
you mind elaborating on the time you lost it all? And what happened?
Yeah. So my relationship with my son's father fell apart. Just wasn't a healthy relationship. And I helped him establish his gym, and I decided to just leave it all, walk away from it all for, you know, my mental health and my son's. And I decided to start my own gym. And I say that in the sense of in my brother's garage by like taking $1,000. Yeah, taking $1,000 and just buying a squat rack. And that was my gym. And then from there, I bounced around because my clientele grew and bounced around to other gyms for more space. And obviously that took years and years. I went from making probably like $300 a month to way more than that. And it was a process over the years, building up my clientele, building up my finances to say, okay, I'm ready to finally have my own space. So, yeah.
So it's a lot of stuff that as student athletes we learn. It's a lot of skills and knowledge that come with just being a student athlete that transfer over into life after sport, whether we realize it or not. And specifically being an entrepreneur, what would you say those skills were for you that helped you keep persevering and keep having the drive to persevere? I mean, I feel like your journey in itself was perseverance, but being an entrepreneur, I'm sure that perseverance journey from college, from high school to college, from D3 to D2, from D3 to D2 to D1, that's perseverance in itself.
Right.
And what I'm hearing that in your 7 years, in your 6 years, you're still persevering. It's a constant grind. It's a constant journey of perseverance. So tell me how that has shaped you into the persevering Kayla you are.
Like I said, like it's just like always coming from behind. It's always having to fight for the spot and having to put in the work to get to where you want to be. It's a direct translation to my life. Having to start over and work and build and continuing to have the faith mentally to understand that everything you want is coming, and to trust that, you know, like it was shown through my athletic journey, if you work for something, eventually it'll come. And I think it's just continuing to have that mentality in my life. It's like you put in the work and you continue to have faith, you do your part, God will make sure, you know, he delivers everything on his end. So.
In abundance.
Right. In abundance.
For sure. So what exactly does it mean to you to be a woman in sport, a Black woman in sport, in the spaces that you're in and the journey that you had being an entrepreneur?
It's very empowering. Like I have this class that I teach every week with young females, and there's some the males in there too, but to be able to walk in there and be a Black female in volleyball, a lot of people and parents look in there like, oh, this is who's teaching the class. Like, and I'm like, yeah, this is who's teaching the class. Like, I'm actually pretty good and I know what I'm talking about. So it's empowering to be in this space and to be able to change people's perspective of Black women in volleyball specifically. So yeah, and I feel like I'm just a leader in that field of being Black, being a volleyball player, and just showing young girls like this is what can be done from being that. So it's not a negative thing to be that
at all.
Right.
Like you say, it's very empowering. Very empowering. If you could go back, what advice would you give yourself as a student athlete? Knowing what you know now, from being an entrepreneur to being a mom, just going through life. What advice would you give yourself?
I would say, I feel like I did I would say like to just go after everything that you want. I feel like I did do that, but I guess advice I would give to people going through similar things, it's like, don't be scared to go after everything that you say that you want. And like I said, it doesn't have to look like everybody else's story or everybody else's journey. And just because you might hit bumps in the road or, things don't go as smoothly as you thought they were, just keep going and things will work itself out. So if you want something, don't be afraid to take the steps to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And choosing the route that you chose as a minority also comes with some stuff behind closed doors. You mentioned on what it's like to be a minority business owner in the location that you are, but that's just one of many. Working in a male-dominated field is a task in itself.
Sure. Yeah.
Talk to me about some of the things that you've experienced along your journey.
I mean, being not just a trainer, because I feel like there's a lot of female trainers, but being a gym owner, I felt like made me almost a target, because it's like, wait, there's not a lot of females doing this. So it's like I had a lot of people question my training style, or question even how I got there, or how did she get this, and and it's like, just because I'm a woman, like, why can't I have this, you know? And a lot of backlash came from a lot of other male trainers, and yeah, it's just like, you just get questioned. It's like, it's never like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, she's qualified. It's always like, wait, like, everyone's always tilting their head at you, and it's like, it's frustrating at times. But like I said, it's also what keeps me going. So yeah, it's just a lot of backlash from people and questioning how I got here, and why would people want to work with her? Why do people want to train with her? And so.
And through all of that, how do you maintain your mental stability?
I feel like it's just my friends and family, just being able to speak to them, and having a space with them. And I do a lot of therapy too. I have a therapist too. But being
I heard that she goes to therapy, y'all.
Yes.
Me too. It's okay.
Yes, speaking on that too, my mom told me to go years ago, and I thought it was like some crazy thing. Like, I'm not crazy. Like, why don't you go to therapy? And now I can't live without it. So
I don't see my life without a therapist now.
Right, exactly. So I think it's just having an open space and people that you can talk to and lean on. Just talk it out, and somebody to just keep you level headed. And so my family is that for me, and it allows me not to take things out on people. So yeah, just finding safe spaces to be able to release. And
like this is a safe space, guys.
Yeah. And self-care, working out, just doing things and taking time for yourself, and really just being intentional and being present in moments like with my son, and and having the option to step away from that world and the entrepreneurial world and all the stuff that I deal with really helps. So just
for sure. And also, as a fitness trainer, what advice would you have to some of those athletes that are struggling, trying to get back into it? Because a lot of people don't know how to work out without the ball.
Right.
And it's hard, because if I've been bouncing a ball running up and down the court for 20-some years, that's all I want to do. Mm-hmm. And some people, they lose themselves. Some people gain more pounds than they would like. And what I've realized is that the transition and the hump comes into trying to figure out what works best for them.
Right.
Post-athlete style or post-athlete life. So what advice would you have to them? Because that's a lot of things that people ask me personally, because I just never stopped. Mm-hmm. I kept going. But everybody doesn't have that mental strength. Some people are tired. They don't want to work out no more. And I get it, because I was tired, but it was more of a self-care thing for me. It kept my mental where it needed to be. So it's just like, I'm going to keep going as hard as I need to go. Right. So what advice would you have to give to them?
I would say first finding out like your why, like you just said. Now it's self-care for you. So I think it's first like figuring out like, why do I need to be healthy? Why do I need to move? Because you have to have a reason for it, or else it's not going to mean anything to you. So for me, obviously it's staying healthy, and now being a mother, like I want to be active and healthy for him. But I think it's finding your purpose and figuring out like, okay, why am I going to be working out? Even if it's to look good or fit into your clothes, it has to be something. And then I think as athletes, we're used to working in groups or having a coach. So I always say, find a gym or something where you can be in that group setting. And it's like, I think you two work out with other people, mm-hmm. and we like that camaraderie. So I would say,
what we're used to.
Yeah. So it's like, find accountability, I would say, whether it's a trainer or a group of people who are already doing it. And I think that just makes it exciting. And it's like, oh, they're going, I'm going too. And start there. And then once you get into a routine, maybe if you want to branch out on your own and just do your own thing, cool. But I think at the beginning, it's just accountability and having someone that, you know, hold you accountable until you get into a routine, until it becomes a habit. So
for sure. For sure. And finally, you know, sport exposure, we're all about exposing our experiences, exposing our stories, exposing the things that we went through to hopefully stop one of you guys from going the same thing that we went through. So what advice or what would you like to expose about sports or volleyball?
I would say just become knowledgeable in every aspect, whether that's, you know, the recruiting process or just really like know what you, I feel like especially nowadays, just know what you have access to, know what kind of schools you can go to and you can't go to, and just don't like learn about everything yourself. Don't just take other people's words and advice, because sometimes people don't have their best interest, you know, your best interest in mind. So yeah, just know all your options and then surround yourself with good people who have your best interest in mind.
That's very important.
People that can keep you grounded and keep you level headed and yeah.
For sure. But thank you so much for stopping by to share your story. Did I create a safe space for you?
Oh, for sure.
Good. So I hope there's a volleyball player. I hope there's a Black and brown volleyball player that's out there that were inspired by Kayla's story. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.